So much about the...
Yes, everybody, it's time for another episode of the worst podcast ever. This is episode 4, and I, as always, am your host, Dan Brosman. Super Mario 35th anniversary, something that I wasn't aware of, and supposedly there is something coming out, a collage of games to commemorate, and I'm really interested in it. I didn't know about it until lately, and evidently this has been a thing for a little bit. So we're going to dive into that. And the Polymega makes another sighting of it, I should say. Metal Jesus Rocks did a review of it, which makes me really excited because I am a backer of the Polymega, and we're going to talk about that as well. And I want to talk a little bit about the Intellivision Amico, or Amico. Everybody seems to be talking about it. Everybody has their take on it. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do my take on it. Because at first I really wasn't all that interested. But I'm like, actually, this kind of goes along with my gaming history. So we're going to jump into that as well. We also have another beer to review. We will be reviewing the Edmund Fitzgerald from Great Lakes Brewing Company. It's a porter, and this is a darker beer for me. I know we've been doing IPAs and Pilsners, but now we are going to the dark side. So let's jump into the first thing here, the Super Mario Brothers 35th anniversary. And for some reason, Nintendo, for whatever reason, likes to celebrate the anniversaries on the 5. So I guess for the 25th anniversary, they released something on the Wii. And basically what it was if you know what the Super Mario Brothers All-Stars was, it originally came out on the Super Nintendo, and it had all the original Super Mario Brothers games on it, but in 16-bit, which was awesome. So the 25th anniversary came rolling around, and they re-released it on the Wii. I have never played it on the Wii, so I just read about it, and this is what I know of it. So, but it's a great game. So if you pick it up on the Wii or the Super Nintendo, that's great. And you know, that doesn't seem like it was that great of a thing. If you're going to celebrate an anniversary, a re-release of something like that that's exactly the same doesn't seem all that exciting. But okay. So now flash forward 10 years, and we have the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. And I'm going along and watching my YouTube videos as I do, and I came along RGT 85 was talking about the 35th anniversary supposed game that's coming out, which I was like, okay, well, whatever. And it is on there. I thought I seen the logo or the label for Mario 64, which I love that game. I know that's not a sentiment shared by everybody, that's for sure. But I love that game. And the problem with playing that game right now is I don't play any of my stuff on CRT, as we have talked about in the past. So when I hook my Nintendo 64 up to my HD modern TV, I wouldn't say that Mario 64 looks all that great. And to have a chance for Mario 64 to come out reimagined, revamped on the Switch, playing it in HD, I'm super excited for it. And to be honest with you, that's not the only game that's supposedly going to come out here. And this is Right now, I don't know that Nintendo's actually done an official announcement that this is coming out. But from everything that, I mean, I didn't take what RGT85 said at face value. Not that he was lying. He never said that this was officially going to happen, but it looks like it's going to happen. Everything I researched on the web seems to suggest that this is going to happen. And along with Mario 64, there will be other games. There will be Super Mario Sunshine, which came out on the GameCube. Was it the GameCube? Yeah, the GameCube. And Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, which I believe was the Wii. And yeah, I mean, I've only played the Galaxy games a little bit. And they're good. I like them. I really like Sunshine. I love that backpack that he wears with the water, the kind of jet water air pack, or whatever you want to say, jetpack. But my big thing here is they could skip every other game and just have Mario 64 on there. And I'm telling you, I would pick it up in a heartbeat. And if this comes out for real, dude, I'm totally picking this up. So I can't wait for this. I guess that's really all there is to say about it. Just in the fact that I was kind of surprised that I hadn't heard about this yet. I mean, there's so much information out there with so much going on in the world of video games nowadays that evidently for me, this just fell through the cracks because it sounded like it had been around for a while, this news, or it had been rumors. And I guess it's still rumors, but it's less of a rumor now. There's always those rumors in gaming. So, alrighty. I am a fan of companies coming out with clone consoles, meaning companies that make new hardware that plays old video games, namely physical media. As I've said in the past, I am a collector of physical media, music along with video games. And what has happened over the last, probably longer than 10 years, but let's just say 10 years, is that companies have started making systems which are clone systems that play these games, that can play these games. And I think, I don't want to go too far into this, the general information of clone consoles, but this leads into what I'm saying, because I've already gone over some of this before. But I'm a big fan. Even though a lot of these consoles, or some of these consoles, aren't all that great. What they do is not that great. But I don't care, because as long as people are putting this stuff out there and making it better and supporting this retro game, I don't want to say craze, but this revigoration, is that a word? Revival. There we go. That's a word. This retro game revival that we seem to be going through right now. I'm a fan. I will support certain things, even if it seems a little bit like, every time you support one of these things, where it's on Kickstarter or any sort of crowdfunding, Indiegogo, you're always taking a chance. You're taking a chance that this project that people are trying to put together is not going to come to fruition, and that you will lose your money. It is a risk, and over the years, there have been a lot, okay? And I can't really say anything I've backed, which is not that much, but what I have backed, most of them, I think all of them have come to fruition. But I know from watching other YouTubers there that have thrown their money in the ring for other things that that's not always the case. Okay, so I want to say this is about 4 years ago. We started hearing about something called Mega Blocks, I believe it was called. And it was going to be FPGA clone systems that plays multiple systems, which blew my mind because I am a big fan of FPGA. And if you don't know what that is, that's clone systems on a chip, pretty much emulation for hardware, which is generally better than software emulation. I would explain it in more detail if I could, but I can't. So basically with clone consoles, you have, there's software emulation, and that's okay. And then above that, even better, you have FPGA. So this company, Mega Blocks at the time, said, we are under development, making this thing, come and support us. And this was before they even asked for our support, actually. So time went by, and, I had heard about it, but then there was nothing. I didn't hear anything about it for a while. I'd actually, every once in a while, I'd be like, I wonder what happened to that. But no one would have any news. There'd be no new news out there. And then all of a sudden one day, I'm trying to think, was it Gamester? What is his name? I don't follow him anymore. I can't think of his name. But another YouTuber is like Gamester81 or something. I'm probably totally getting that wrong. Had news about Mega Blocks, but Mega Blocks had changed its name to Polymega. Same exact thing. For whatever reason, they changed their name. And now they were starting to release information and pictures and updates. Not that often, but it'd been a while since we heard from them. And originally I was like, you know what? It's just one of many things that people talked about, that somebody that wanted to develop something got really excited about and then was like, nope, it's just not working for whatever reason. However those things, the ebbs and flows of developing stuff like that goes. Well, as it turns out, and I should have done more research on this now that I think about it, but I know that the people that are developing the Polymega have pretty good backgrounds in the video gaming industry as far as developing and software and hardware and stuff like that. So that's always a plus when you hear something like that. So anyway, moving forward, we're moving slow here on this thing. Anyway, so now here we go. What was it? I think maybe E3 or some convention about a year and a half ago. You seen the Metal Jesus crew was there with Polymega at one of the booths and tried it out and were really impressed by it. And that's awesome. Because when you can put up as many videos as you want on your website, but hands-on by people that aren't going to bullshit you is what you want, especially if you're trying to decide. Now, Polymega, even though it looks like they're doing good now, had a rough start because they did a pre-order. They didn't do crowdfunding necessarily. They didn't go through Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Polymega did a pre-order, which was pretty much kind of like their crowdfunding through their own website. So it was all to them. Now, I was there on day one for that. And that was rough because getting through, they had a whole bunch of problems with their website, getting through, trying to figure out if this, in fact, my order went through, which it did. And the kicker of it was right before the pre-orders went, like that week, we found out that it was going to be emulation and not FPGA. Because before that, they had said, well, we're going to do FPGA, but it's going to be a hybrid. And everyone's like, well, what does that mean? They're going to be like, well, it's hybrid emulation FPGA, which I don't even think that's a thing, really. But, and that was like a month before pre-orders. I know I'm not going in a direct line here, but bear with me, folks. So they said, first they said, these things are going to be FPGA, right? Then the second thing they said, well, it's going to be hybrid emulation FPGA. And then like the week of, maybe only a couple days before the pre-orders were due to go live, they said it's going to be emulation. Now here, I'm all excited, right? I am super excited. Finally this machine's coming out and I want it. But why I wanted it was because I wanted the Sega Genesis module. And when I say module, maybe I got to explain how this machine is put together. So it's just not one piece. You have the base unit, which plays CD-based games, which has not been done before. It's been tried, kind of, but not really made it as far as the Polymega's made it. So that's why I said it's never been, it has been tried, but with not good results. So you buy the base unit, and then, which plays, well, we're going to get to that. We'll tell you what it plays. And that plays CD-based games. And then you could buy, they have 4 different modules that clip into it. And the 4 modules that they have is a Super Nintendo module that plays, and these plays all physical media. They have one for NES, Sega Genesis that also plays 32X cards, which is fantastic, and TurboGrafx, which is cool also, right? So I was definitely interested in, of course, the CD-based system, but as well as the module to play Sega Genesis. Because there's nothing else out there to play 32X games on. Nothing. And even though this was now emulation, my curiosity was still piqued. But what happened right before pre-orders for this came online? Analog announces we will be doing the Mega SG, an FPGA, an FPGA clone system for the Genesis. And actually, I think they came out with this right after. It was around the same time, but I think it was after, because I'd already put my pre-order in for the Polymega, and it's not cheap. I think pre-orders for that were, I want to say for the base unit was $299, and then maybe $60 or $70 for the Sega Genesis module. So money was spent. But now Analog says they're coming out with the Mega SG. Well, so I went back and I canceled my pre-order for the Polymega and pre-ordered the Mega SG, because that's really what I wanted. At the time, that's really what I was going for. So time goes along, and people are kind of talking about this a little bit, and every time I hear about it and people are talking about it, I get more interested in it again. And finally I said, once this thing goes off of pre-orders, it's going to be more expensive. So screw it. Let's just do it. But I've always wanted to start collecting for the TurboGrafx 16, but I never wanted to do it on original hardware because I didn't want to go through that whole thing of trying to figure out how to get it to work on my original TV. And homie doesn't do CRTs, right? So I order it. I get the module for the TurboGrafx, which is awesome. And now you play the waiting game for this to come back out, to be released. So let's go over. Well, first, the release date was set for July. Let me see here where we got July 6th of 2020, and that has come and gone. And normally, you get a little nervous with that, but what's going on this year with the COVID-19 and everything, it didn't really surprise me. It would have probably been more of a surprise if it had come out on time. So now they're saying that it's going to come out on November 15th, 2020. Actually, they're not saying it, but this is word of mouth everywhere. Because they didn't update any of their information on their website. That day just came and gone, and even before that day came and gone, you were already hearing rumors that this ain't coming out on July 16th or July 6th. I'm sorry, which is fine. Okay, so let's get into the system a little bit more as well. Okay. So, and it does sound like this. People are getting their review units now, and reviews are going up online. And we're going to talk about that. So what does this thing play? Now, I'm just going to read the American versions, but pretty much whatever I read here, it's going to play the PAL version, which is Europe, and it's going to play the Japanese version as well. They're all compatible. So it plays, for CD-based games, it'll play the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, Saturn, Sega CD, TurboGrafx CD, and Neo Geo CD. And the modules that you can buy are for the Genesis and 32X, the Sega Genesis, the TurboGrafx 16, the NES, and the Super NES, which is nice. And that's what you're going to get. I mean, now, obviously, you get all the European and the Japanese versions of those systems, too. So, like, Nintendo, you're going to get Famicom, and TurboGrafx 16, you're going to get the PC Engine. It's all the same. Which, that is the one thing about emulation machines that does benefit gaming. Because now, if you want to buy probably a cheaper version of the game, which is always a PAL or Japanese version, you can do that, but at the same time, you can download translation patches for these games and install them onto your system. So now the game, everything as far as text goes, comes in English. So a plus. And if you didn't pre-order this is where I kind of worry about how long this thing's going to last and how well this is going to do. Because if you didn't pre-order it, the base unit's going to be $400. Man, that is a lot of money. $400. If you are in the gaming realm as far as dealing with these clone consoles, you know that is expensive. The high end of clone consoles, pretty much by analog, not including the, what do they call it? The metal one that they make for the NES. I can't think of the name of it now. That's like $400, but that's because it's made out of metal and everything on that is like top-notch quality. But even the stuff that's made out of plastics, the Mega SG and the Super NT, those were $200. This, for the base unit alone, is $400. That is asking a lot. And I know that you got costs to make up for with the development and all that, but boy, oh boy, I gotta wonder of how well this is going to go in the future, because $400 is no small amount of change. And then the modules will be $80. So the ones that you slide on the top there to play all the cartridge games. $80 a piece. I'm laughing. I'm laughing for two things, because that's expensive and because I bought this thing. It wasn't for that much, but it It wasn't cheap either, pre-ordering it. And yes, I do get some buyer's remorse every now and again when I think of it, but the closer it gets to actually having it in my hands, I know once I get it in my hands that'll go away. Because everything I hear about it, that people that have gotten the review models in their hands has been positive. And let's talk about that. Okay. So the first person that I seen that actually had their hands on it, the YouTuber that I follow, was the Modern Vintage Gamer. And if you're into gaming and you don't know about him, check him out on YouTube. Very good guy. Very good channel. And, and these two guys, because it was him and then Metal Jesus Rocks, both released something. And these guys are going to tell it to you like it is. They're not going to sugarcoat it. And everything, well, not everything, but most of it was positive. There are some things as far as compatibility with some of the CD games that seem to be an issue, but that's more of a thing related to the BIOSes that those games run on. And we'll talk about that too here in a second. So about a month ago, or a month and a half ago now, actually, the Modern Vintage Gamer came out with his review on it, and I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my God, please don't tell me I've been waiting this whole time, spent this money, and this thing is going to be garbage. And I was surprised. He really liked it. And that surprised, actually, I was probably more relieved. And then today, Metal Jesus drops his video of it. And as soon as I seen it come up, I was like, oh, I hope he likes it. Because, even though my Vintage Gamer gave it a good review, sometimes, you need more opinions on it because not everybody, thinks the same or feels the same way about stuff. So Metal Jesus did his thing, and it was pretty much the same. Everything played really well, but I will say they didn't have, none of the actual cartridge modules have gone out yet for review. So we're talking about just the CD-based games being reviewed, which is fine. Because we already know that cartridge-based games have been emulated forever as far as the cartridges go. But some of these CD games, not so much, right? Okay. So he gave it a good review, which is super exciting. Along with, hey, there is some compatibility issues with some of the CD games because of the BIOS. And supposedly Polymega is aware of this and continuing to work on getting these BIOSes updated because they are from scratch making their own. Because you have to. Everything else is licensed. You can't use the same ones that Sega made. Now, that being said, they can't put the ones that Sega had on there. But you can go online and download those BIOSes. You got to find them. And then put that on a flash card or, one of those thumbnail flash drive, USB flash drives. And you can plug that into the Polymega and run those BIOSes, and it'll be fine. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say BIOSes, then you're probably not going to be interested in this machine anyway. But, so I don't sound like I'm just being a little pretentious about that. From what I know of it is a BIOS is kind of the software, kind of the gateway that allows you to play games on a certain system. And I probably just explained that, and I'm totally wrong. Because the only experience I've had with BIOSes is when I was setting up one of my Retro Pis. And I had to find the correct BIOSes for the Sega CD. So I already have those. So it's it's really not big of a deal because the two systems that you're most looking at here are probably the PlayStation, which had a little bit of a problem, very little bit, only on a very small amount of games supposedly, and the Sega CD. And I already knew about that. Modern Vintage Gamer had already gone over that and talked about that a little bit. So hopefully, ultimately, what I'd like to see is that Polymega would figure out a way to remedy that without me having to do that myself. But it's a very small amount of games that are affected by it. So ultimately here, what you are looking at is a plug-and-play system ready to go out of the box to play all these games. And that's coming out in November. And I am super excited about it. And I just had to talk about it. After I seen Metal Jesus' video today, boom, I was all in. And I'm trying to think of, and I forgot the other thing, which is not out yet, not available yet, but I've heard the prototypes that have been tried out by people at these conventions say it works fairly well, is they are also developing a light gun for light gun games to use on your your HD TVs, on modern TVs, which of that, I'm not a huge light gun game like some people, like the gaming off the grid guys, but I could definitely see myself picking that up if it works the way it's supposed to work. And that's iffy because the adapters that have come out for the NES is a very mixed bag, and usually it falls on the side of not that great. But that's another thing there. So fingers crossed. Let's hope that system comes through because I spent a lot of money on it. And I really want it to be good. All right. So, folks, I was not an Atari kid. I didn't grow up on Atari. I had cousins that had an Atari 2600, and I would like to play it when I was over there, but I did not grow up on it. It was not what we had at our house. I was an Intellivision guy, and I still love Intellivision because there's a certain feel to it, a certain sound. I love it. I don't have mine plugged in. I still have my old system, but I still haven't hooked it up. One of these days I'll do it. So when I heard that Intellivision was coming out with a new system, I was like, really? But at the same time, too, I was like, okay. Because the thing with that is, all of these names, Intellivision, Atari, Coleco, they're just names nowadays. The companies that they were back in the late 70s and early 80s, those companies are gone. So now what you have is companies or entities that have paid for the name, for the licensing, all of that. It's not the same company. And people that aren't as in depth as I am, or as in depth as we are, other gamers and collectors into the video gaming world, don't understand it. They don't understand. They just see, especially with Atari, because it's like, oh, Atari, I loved Atari. Growing up with Atari, and it's like, yeah, but that's not the same Atari. This isn't Nolan Bushnell anymore. Okay, this isn't the hot tubs and keggers Atari. And if you don't know what I mean, Game Over, which is a documentary, a lot about Atari, check it out. It was super interesting. But anyway, so growing up, I was not an Atari guy. I was an Intellivision guy. So when I heard this, of course we have the Atari VCS coming out, and it's some company that picked up the name, and it's just it's a shit box that they're making, okay? People want to kind of, I know people are being critical of it too, but if you've been following it, it's going to be a shit box, and what they're going to put out is absolutely, it's dumb. Every time I hear about it now, I just get more and more annoyed about it. And you know what? I understand, to each their own, but do us all a favor and don't support this thing. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm tired of hearing about that thing, even though I'm the one that brought it up. Okay, so I hear they're going to come out with a new thing, and it's the Intellivision Amico. And the guy who's heading this thing up is a guy called Tommy Tallarico. And I was like, okay, I don't know who this is. But evidently, he's been around in video games for a while. And the one piece of work that I was familiar with him is he did the soundtrack for the Terminator game for Sega CD, which that is awesome. It is a awesome soundtrack. Probably one of the best ones I've ever heard for a video game. It's just, especially back then. And I was like, okay, I don't know how that translates to making a video game system, but you know what? I'm in. I'm interested, but barely. And then the information comes out. Well, it's not going to play your physical media. It's going to be all digital download. And they lost me. Because I was like, yeah, I'm not a digital guy. I collect physical media. And I really wasn't interested in it. And they're saying it's going to be more geared towards the family experience. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. And the more they talked about it, the less interested I was. And then they said the price of it's going to be $249, and I was like, whoa. That is definitely something I'm not interested in. Because I'm not above spending money, as we know, with the Polymega, on things that seem like, at least to me, they'd be worth it. But the more I looked into this thing, the Amico, I just don't see where there's a need for this. And that's the thing, when these systems comes out, you gotta ask yourself, not for nostalgia's sake, but for practicality, what need does this machine fill? The Polymega fills this role of, hey, I collect physical media and I would like a machine to play physical media on. I think this new machine is going to be the next step in that evolution. I want to buy this. But now you have the Amico and it says, well, this is going to be digital and it's going to be more of like family games. And a lot of these games, come to find out, they're already available on other systems. They're available on mobile phones. They're available on the Switch and, I don't know, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in the digital stores. And now I'm asking myself, so of these games, not everything, that a lot of what's coming out on the Amico is already available, then what do I need this system for? Why do I need to spend $250? And this is somebody who grew up, I love Intellivision, but I couldn't be more uninterested in a system than this. And God love him, man. That Tommy Tallarico is a character. And he loves putting himself out there. And there are a lot of critics of this thing. And he likes to respond to those critics, which you don't need to. And the thing that I will say is, I'm not saying that this system is going to be a bad system at all. I'm not. I've heard from people that have had hands-on time with it, and they said it's super fun. I'm not saying that this is going to be a piece of junk or whatever else. Not like the VCS. What I'm saying is this thing necessary? If we already have what this thing is offering, you can get it in other places, I guess. Because he's saying that it's going to be a more family experience to bring people back into the family room. But isn't Nintendo already doing that? Hasn't Nintendo been doing that? Especially since the days of the Wii. That was the big thing with the Wii. Everybody's in there. We're playing bowling or tennis or whatever else, boxing. That Wii Sports was probably one of the most popular games of all time. Who didn't play that? If you played a Wii, you played Wii Sports. Of any game you played. But I don't know what this system, this Amico, is trying to sell. And Tommy, I know you're nostalgic for Intellivision. I get that. Trust me, I am a sucker for nostalgia. I am Mr. Nostalgia. But at what cost? At what price? And I hope that it does good for, I hope it does good. Unlike the VCS, because I really don't think that Tommy is trying to rip anybody off. It seems legit. He seems like he's legit from everything that I've seen. And even though there are critics that keep going after this system, I think that, it will be released. And that's another thing, this was supposed to come out in October. And now I think it's been bumped back to April. And that's fine. It's the times we live in. This happens even when stuff isn't screwed up in the world. So, that's where I stand on it. Uninterested, but who knows? This thing could come out and it could change my mind. Because a lot of the games that on it are going to be remastered games of the old Intellivision games I played. Which that's pretty neat. But have I really been looking for it? Especially to the point where I'm like, yeah, I will drop $250 on that. Especially coming out with these new systems coming out. Am I going to want to drop that money when I want to drop the money on one of these new systems? I don't know. I guess it's not that big of a deal, but it's just something that I've been hearing about a lot lately. And, and the reason why I talked about it and the reason why I'm responding to what's been going on is because a couple weeks ago, they had this unveiling. I don't know what you would call it. It was so weird. Like Tommy Tellerico on doing a live cast or whatever on the internet. And he just... Oh no! Tommy just looks like he just drank like 6 Red Bulls right before he turned his computer on, and it was go time. The dude looked cracked out, and it's cracking me up because I know that's just based on looks, but Tommy's an intense guy. He's just so intense. He remember, who he reminds me of? And this is nothing against Tommy. This really is not. But Tommy reminds me of Don Lapre. The guy that if you stayed up long enough back in the day on TV and those infomercials would come out, Don Lapre and his money-making package, he'd be like, it is so easy with this taking out little ads and buying up real estate to make $1 million. I am going to share with you how I made millions of dollars living out of my tiny apartment. And it's like, okay, Don, let me tell you what. You make millions of dollars, you're not going to need to sell a money-making package. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the salesman in Tommy, because I'm not going to lie. I would watch the money making package thing for about 10 minutes and it seemed great. Even though you knew that thing was total BS, there was that small part of you in the back of your brain going, maybe, what if this thing's legit? But it's like, yeah, or not. Oh, Tommy. All right. Well, I think we need to talk about this beer here. Edmund Fitzgerald, a porter. And you guys know by now that I am not a darker beer guy, especially a stout guy. I think it's pretty safe to say that, I'm willing to try one, but if you open my fridge, I'm not going to have a stout there waiting for you. But I will try a porter here, because a porter it's still light enough. And what I mean by light is it's not a stout. It's definitely not light, but it's a darker beer. And sometimes with these, you can get the flavor and the richness that you can't get with lighter beers like a Pilsner or an IPA. Because IPA, you really shoehorned in to a certain flavor profile, I think, a lot of times. Some do it better than others, but that's pretty much where you're at. And sometimes it's got more of a fruitier flavor, and sometimes it's just really hoppy, but it's still a pretty narrow path. But when you start getting into the darker beers, the flavor profile changes dramatically. And that's where we are with this one. And I got to tell you, I've never heard of this. I've seen it at the store a bunch. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's try it out. Let's try this porter. And I am going to take a sip at it right now. And let's see what we think. That is delicious. That's really good. And I wish I had brought down the box that it came in, because it really talks about what's in there. But it does have a nice chocolate aftertaste and a coffee aftertaste, especially the coffee. And if you're a coffee fan and you're a beer fan, you are definitely going to like this. And that's one of the things I do love about some of the darker beers, is the aftertaste and how long it lingers. Because this isn't going to be something that you're going to just chug down. I mean, you could, but why would you want to? This thing is going to be kind of a sipping beer a little bit, and just enjoy the flavors on the tongue. Because it's a little bit heavier. Obviously, it's darker than a Pilsner and IPA. But you just want to enjoy those rich flavors. The little bit heavier on the tongue, but the chocolate and the coffee notes at the end are fantastic. It's made by Great Lakes Brewing Company, which is out of Cleveland, Ohio, so not too far from where I'm at, because I am in the greater Chicagoland area. And it is, let's see what the alcohol volume, 6.0, so 6. I'm loving it. I will, especially this time of year, now that we're going to switch into the fall, because with me, I don't do as much drinking in when it gets cold out. I'm not a big drinker. Well, I'm not a big drinker, period, anymore. That's why I like these craft beers a little more. I like to enjoy the beers that I do drink. But I think with most people, in the summertime, you kind of drink a lighter beer, a more fresher beer. But then when you get into the fall, you go for these darker beers into the winter time, something that's a little bit more heartier, and right now, and because this is August, so I am seeing a lot of like pumpkin ales and Oktoberfests out already. And I really wasn't going to start doing any of that until we got into October, but I've seen so many out there right now that made by different companies that I'm like, ooh, I mean, look at this. This might be good. And anybody knows that drinks those pumpkin ales or Oktoberfest, it could be very hit or miss. And every year, it's a lot of times it's not the same. The only company that seems to make like their seasonal beers, especially Oktoberfest, very much the same every year as far as flavor profile goes, is Sam Adams. And Sam Adams is one of my favorite ones. They're the ones that I go to every year for Oktoberfest. But that's because I like the flavor of it and how it is continuously the same every year. But it's still fun to try these other, especially these craft beer companies that, you know, you never know. Maybe this year this place will be good and that place won't, and vice versa the next year. But now everybody is throwing their head in the ring with these seasonal beers. And I think, I don't know if next episode I'm going to start with that, but definitely September. So we're going to do 2 months, because I try to drop these episodes every other week. So about 2 a month. So that'll give us, 4 reviews on 4 different Oktoberfests or pumpkin ales, because I put those all in the same category, pretty much. That time of year, right before you go into those winter ales, which are also delicious. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about where we're going to end it this week. It's been a joy talking to you, and I hope it's been a joy listening to me. I am your host, Dan Brosman, saying goodbye and see you later.